Welcome to the Locked On Stars trade deadline extravaganza. Who should the Dallas Stars be keeping their eye on this season and adding to their roster for the playoff push? I'll tell you who next.
Your Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. Today is a Locked On Stars trade deadline extravaganza. Who should the Dallas Stars be looking out for at this year's trade deadline to try to make themselves better and ready to gear up for the postseason? I have so many names I want to throw out there. I want to get into all of them, so we're not going to waste a ton of time. And of course, a lot of these players have similar traits in common. One is most of them will be defensemen. Some of them are righties, of course, and that's where the Dallas Stars really need to improve on moving forward. But there's some names out there that you may have heard already. There are some names that may be new. So I sort of wanted to give my opinions and thoughts on each one of them and see if we can be correct on some of these, since the trade deadline is in about a month and we have a few weeks here to just sort of soak everything in. I did one of these episodes last year, so I thought it would be fun to play a little GM here on today's Wednesday edition of Locked On Stars. Be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell as well. Be sure to drop a comment. Let me know who you're keeping your eye on. I'm sure some of these players that I'm going over you are already familiar with. So we'll begin with some defensemen that I want to throw out there. The first is Carson Soucy. Soucy played a few years in Minnesota a few years back. Then he was with Seattle, and now he's been a part of Vancouver the past few seasons. Soucy sort of is maybe the ideal archetype of a defenseman the Stars could be looking for. He doesn't produce a lot of offense. He's somewhere to 15, 20 points a season, but he's a shutdown defenseman. He's 6'5". If you want to nitpick, he's a lefty. I don't know if the Stars have a lot of room to be picky at this year's trade deadline. And I will say this as well. I don't know if there's a lot of moves out there that could be needle moves, right? Where Chris Tanev was sort of that move for the Dallas Stars last season. I just feel like there's a lot of guys that could be available that will improve your roster, but it's not going to be a splash unless Dallas wants it to be. And I'll get to that name in just a few moments. But, you know, Soucy this season, he's playing about 16 minutes a game at even strength. Again, not going to produce a ton of offense, but he's 6'5", 212 pounds, could give Dallas some size on the back end. And of course, there's a lot that comes into play when you're talking about acquiring a player like Soucy. What does the contract look like? What does the money look like? How does the contract sort of fit in with the Stars' future plans? I think they're going to have to try to offload somebody like Matt Dumba. Soucy isn't a big cap hit at 3.25. He's on the final year of a contract in Vancouver, so this would be a rental. It just depends what kind of prospect or what kind of return is Vancouver looking for. They're in an interesting situation right now because of Pettersson. They just got rid of JT Miller. Maybe they're looking to offload a lot more. You look at his net rating, his offense is minus 4.3. His defense is 0.1. He's a left shot. He can play on both sides. He does have a no trade clause as well. So we'll see how that plays into things. But I think Carson Soucy is certainly a name to look out for. He's not in the final year of his contract. He does have some term. It would just be the extra year in 25-26, which could be appealing because maybe Dallas does want to offload Dumba, and Soucy can sort of be your replacement for next season. And he's a cheaper replacement since Dumba is at 3.75. Soucy at 30 years of age is a lot better of an option next season than Dumba is. And we all know it's not working with Dumba. I'm just really curious on if the Stars can offload somebody like Dumba. I don't know if he's going to have a whole lot of market. But you never know. Maybe a team with some young cats, sort of like an Anaheim, with their rebuilding years, they just want to get some veterans in there that know how to be professionals type of thing. Like they have Gudas over there, like a player of that nature that can just be sort of a mentor to some of the young guys. Maybe there's a market for him there. But I think Soucy would be an interesting add. Again, he's sort of a third pairing type of defenseman. I don't believe there's going to be a top four just fill in out there that you can get like Dallas did last season for Chris Tanev. Maybe there is. Maybe there's a workaround, which if someone's going to do it, it would be Jim Nill. There is going to be an opportunity or a way to sort of work with the cap, do the gymnastics, so to speak, to make something like that happen. The good news is, too, Dallas could have some space. They already do. Now with Lundqvist out and Sagan still on the LTIR, eventually Heiskanen could move there if the right piece comes along as well. So we begin with Soucy. Let's move over to a right shot defenseman and somebody on the outside in now in Montreal. That's David Savard. He's a cap hit of 3.5. He's in the final year of a 4-year deal with Montreal. Again, not a huge upside offensively. He's sort of, a 20-point a year guy on the back end. But once they acquired Alexander Carrier, he really doesn't really have a role there. He's just a veteran guy that could fill in. He does have some Stanley Cup experience. He played with Tampa Bay in 2021. He blocks shots, and his defensive ratings minus 1.5. But you stick him in a group here in Dallas, maybe it can improve some of those numbers. Again, I have to preface this with I don't know if the risk is going to be worth the reward for some of these type of moves, if that's a Savard. We can sort of throw Rasmus Ristolinen into this group as well. His cap hit's 5.1. He's a right shot, big guy, 6'4", 220. Look, he's been thrown out there recently. I understand somebody like Rasmus Ristolainen being a player that Stars fans or the front office would be intrigued about. He does have term through 26-27. So I think it only makes sense if you are going to get rid of Matt Dumba, where you think he can sort of slot in, but he's a little bit more expensive. He has had some injury issues in his career. He's a big guy. He sort of is just in that category of I don't know if there's much of a reward for bringing somebody in like Rasmus Ristolainen. There's already contracts that the Stars have that aren't very good, like a Dumba. You could sort of throw Lyubushkin in there at 3.25, although I'll argue against that. I do like Lyubushkin and what he's brought to the Stars, but Rasmus Ristolainen just feels like you're not getting any substance for a move like that, in my opinion. And of course, the return could vary, and maybe there's some contract retention in there where it does make sense for Dallas. But again, he's sort of part of this crew that's a third pairing defenseman. Dallas has so many of those already with CC and Dumba. And if they want to bring Petrovic up for the postseason, right? I just feel like he sort of falls in that category with Brendan Smith a bit. And I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze, so to speak. But albeit he's a big guy, he could fit in as a nice depth defenseman, and maybe I shouldn't be so picky, but Ristolainen isn't really somebody that does it for me. I think Savard's sort of that sort of part of that grouping too. I'd probably rather have Soucy. You get an extra year out of him at a pretty good price. And Vancouver maybe looking to get younger or to just offload some pieces and sort of start over, since they're just going through some troubles. So that's where I sort of stand on players like Savard in Ristolainen. They have his market value of $4.3 million. His defensive numbers are not bad, right? I mean, his rating is plus 1.3. So he's a rugged style. I feel like you're sort of going to have that type of player in Liam Bichsel in a few years. And I don't know if bringing in Ristolainen is going to put you over the edge. Maybe I'm wrong on that and not giving him enough credit, but that is a name to think about. And there could be some salary retention there. I think I'd be a lot more intrigued if there was. But as I said, there isn't a whole lot of different moves out there or players that I think are going to move the needle a ton. And I'm coming at this with the lens of Miro's going to be back. So you're going to feel pretty good about where the decor is. So maybe a Ristolainen would be a good add. Does give Dallas a big body, somebody that could be stable on the back end and could potentially be an interesting addition with a player like Lindell. And maybe Lyubushkin can play with Harley. Or even Miro, a big rugged style defenseman. Who does that sort of remind you of? Roman Polak, who Miro played alongside. So maybe I could talk myself into it, depending on the return, right? Dallas doesn't have a ton of blue chip prospects because they're reaping the benefits of players like Maverick Bourque and Stankoven currently. I don't think any of those players are on the table, in my opinion. But maybe Emil Hemming, someone they could part ways with for the right price. I don't think that would be for Rasmus Ristolainen, but those are the type of players you have to think about. Matej Blumel even is, scoring winger. I don't know if there's going to be a ton of teams out there that are going to be gung-ho on somebody like Blumel. But there is some intriguing factors with each of those players. If I had to rank them, probably Soucy, Ristolainen, and Savard. I think they could be some decent fits, especially Soucy and Ristolainen for what they could bring to Dallas. And again, I don't believe Dallas, if Miro's fully healthy, do they really need just a top four stud? I don't know. I don't necessarily think so. I think they could just add some pieces on the back end to just shore up some of the depth, and they'll be in a good spot. Let's talk about some needle movers, though. There's one I've already talked about, and he's getting some play time more recently. Or not play time, but he's getting thrown out there some more. And there's one that's not really realistic, but really intriguing. And I want to show you that one and share that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Factor. Looking to optimize your nutrition this year, Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Plus, Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfast, and grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. Eating can always be a struggle for those of us that are on the go. We're always rushing around. You don't have time to stop and get some nutritious meals. Factor makes it so much easier for those who are on the go. You get some protein-packed meals with flavor. They're delicious, and they allow you to eat nutritional food when you're trying to move quickly and get through your day. Sometimes you just don't have the time to stop and cook a good meal. Factor is great, and it helps you eat smart. Get started at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 off and use code LockedOnNHL50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LockedOnNHL50 off at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. I've brought this player up in previous episodes, and I can't get him out of my head. And I think I really want the Stars to go get him because, in my opinion, he would be a bit of a needle mover, and that is Arlington, Texas native Seth Jones. I want to talk myself into him so bad, and I want the Stars to talk themselves into him too. Supposedly, there's some murmurs out there that maybe they could be in talks with Dallas. I'm all over this because he can be your number one right-handed defenseman for a few years to come if you go out and get somebody like Seth Jones. The contract, I don't know how it would work. I really wouldn't, but let's just throw that away right now. Let's live in fantasy land where numbers don't matter, and this is the Four Nations face-off. We can bring anybody we want into the mix. Seth Jones is a needle mover and can play in all situations. He could be someone that thrives in Dallas in this type of environment, and he hasn't played with a fantastic team, and I think he could play major minutes for you. You look at his ratings, his offensive plus 3.2, his defense is minus 0.3. He can handle big situations. I think he can truly play in a shutdown role, especially here in Dallas. You could pair him with somebody like Miro Heiskanen or an Esa Lindell or a Thomas Harley because he has done it before. I know for most of his contract, he's been really underwhelming in Chicago, but if they can find a way to make his contract and money work here in Dallas, I think it could be an absolute home run. I'm all for it. And the reason I love him too more than somebody like Ristolinen or Soucy is the offensive upside. His skill set is rare for a player of his size. He's a right shot. Talk about going into the postseason with your right side being Jones, Lyubushkin, and you could throw Harley or maybe Soucy in that mix. I feel like there's room for him to be involved. Jones, Lyubushkin, and yeah, if Dumba's your third guy, then Dumba's your third guy, or Soucy or Petrovic for that matter. I just think he gives you a little pop in your top six, and he could be paired alongside your superstar for a few years in the future alongside Miro Heiskanen. Again, I don't know how it could work. Even with retention, it doesn't seem like it's in the cards, but I want Seth Jones. I'd add him in a heartbeat, get him in, and that will move the needle in my opinion. And maybe I'm just off my rocker here. I know Seth Jones hasn't been revered during his time in Chicago, but they're going through a rebuilding phase, and I think you get him somewhere a different environment, a place where I think he can thrive. And I think you're a lot better off with him at 30 years of age and finding his game rather than somebody like Matt Dumba. Hasn't had a ton of injury problems in his history. I know that's a worry of somebody that's bigger and entering his early 30s. But you look at his years in Columbus, he played over 70 games, 3 straight years. And I think he played almost every game if you conclude that weird COVID season and coming out of it where it was like the 56 game schedule, all that. Like he's played big minutes before. He could be a plus for you defensively, I believe, if you get him into an environment like Dallas has. I'm all for it. I really am. I don't know if it can really work money wise. Some of that stuff is way too confusing for me to even realize. Some of you out there are way better when thinking about the numbers and what percentage do you have to retain. It's a scramble up here in my head. I wasn't good at math. I took one class in college. I try to stay away from that and just get excited about the player. Seth Jones is there for me. Another one that's out there, which I don't think is possible, is Noah Dobson. Really, really fantastic player with the Islanders. And supposedly there's been some rumors out there that they would be willing to let go of him for like an elite scoring winger. And that's sort of where this deal would cut off for Dallas. Because if you're looking at that, they're probably going to want somebody like Wyatt Johnston, who I believe is off limits. The least somebody like Maverick Bourque, which I'll have to say, I'm okay with giving up on somebody like Maverick Bourque in order to get somebody like Noah Dobson. I think he is a future like S. Lindell in this league, just sort of, shut down. And that may be unfair. He can play the offensive zone. Like he has offensive upside. Don't get it twisted. He had a huge year ago and could possibly somebody they could get some picks for, which I don't believe that's what they want in the return. It has to be somewhere like an elite scoring winger. He's on the LTIR, but he's 25. So he's a restricted free agent. But man, that could be a superstar that you could have in your lineup. He's 6'4", just under 200 pounds. He had 70 points last season. And he's got 24 points in 46 games this year. Like he's sort of, Thomas Harley-esque. The question would be, could you re-sign him? I guess if you had to give up somebody like Johnson, you would be, because you could use that money to sign somebody like Dobson instead of Johnston. So is it a guy you go after to get a rental? No, like you're going after him with the thought of like he's going to be a large part of my top 4 moving forward. So it probably doesn't make any sense, but we can dream still. And I think he would be a fantastic addition to the Dallas Stars. He'd be fantastic to anybody, to be completely honest. But you got to throw some unrealistic expectations out there as well. I think Seth Jones is my guy. He really is, because I'm looking for Dallas to make a splash. I really am. And as I said at the beginning here of today's show, I don't know if a lot of players out there are going to do that. Soucy, Ristolinen would be great. I feel like you already got a lot of those types of players with CC now and Dumba. And you could, as much as I hate to do it, you can kind of throw Lyubushkin in there too, to some degree. Get somebody in here that can make a splash and could get you over the hump is sort of where I come from. So that's sort of where I stand on a few of those guys. Okay. We gotta get into some forwards. I do want to get into some sort of middle 6, bottom 6 guys that the Stars could be intrigued about, or at least I am, and could be additions to shore up an already very deep forward group for the Dallas Stars. We'll do that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with wonderful pistachios. Wonderful pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you, unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I love pistachios, and the wonderful pistachios, some of the best out there. I can just sit there and snack on them all day. I have to admit, I do like the salt over, but you have to get in there and get the protein as well. Wonderful pistachios, complete protein, providing all 9 essential amino acids. How these little green wonders pack a protein punch. No shells, wonderful pistachios for that grab and go ease. They got the crack of opening that shell. It's like snack medication. Get snackin' and get crackin' with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Alrighty, some names up front to keep an eye on this trade deadline. Here's a player that's sort of more recently been kind of thrown into some trade rumors, and that is Vladimir Tarasenko. He's not somebody I believe that the Stars would be in on full force, but he's a Stanley Cup champion. Detroit looks like they could be sellers again, and Tarasenko is somebody they were hoping was going to give them some secondary scoring, and that really hasn't been the case. I'll say he could make some sense for Dallas, because how much longer can you expect Matt Duchene for $3 million for 1 year? I don't know if you're going to get that again. He's going to have to get more on the open market. And let's be honest, he could want to stay in Dallas and just sign another 1 year deal. That's always a possibility, but you have to feel like he could warrant some more. And if you brought somebody in like Tarasenko, you get him at 4.75 the next year. I don't know how intriguing that is if he's going to be 34 when you have way too much young talent. So he's not sexy, but a guy that could give you some experience. He's just got 22 points in 53 games. So not really someone I think the Stars are going to be in on, but he has been a name that's thrown out here. Some guys that I think, and some research I did, could be good fits and sort of what I'm looking for in what Dallas should do up front. And that's adding some size, right? Some grit, some edge. I've said this previously on episodes. I'm looking for a Mason Marchment style archetype. Trent Frederick from Boston. The Bruins, I think they're out of it. And Frederick is someone that has some size. I think could be a really nice addition on your bottom six as a wing. He can play center as well, so he does have some versatility. Not a guy that lights up the stat sheet, but 2.3 million cap hit. He can be in your bottom six. He's 6'3", 220. He can play heavy, get in on the forecheck for you. Just 15 points in 55 games. Again, I don't think you're looking for somebody that can provide a punch offensively. Look, I think Sagan's going to be good to go from what it sounds like. So you're going to get some scoring pop back with him whenever he's healthy. You added Granlund, who's a nice scoring winger. This is just somebody that shores up and gives you some physicality on the back end. So Trent Frederick is someone I think to keep an eye on. You look at some of his numbers. This is via Hockey Stat Card. It's not very impressive, albeit 3.9 negative offensive rating and a minus 1.2 defensive rating. But you have to keep in mind they are not a very good 5-on-5 team at all. And again, this is a guy you're playing maybe 9 to 12 minutes a night come the postseason. So I think Frederick is an intriguing player. One I think I could fall in love with is Bjugstad, Nick Bjugstad in Utah. Sort of that Jordan Staal-ish archetype, right? Like big, strong center, good with the puck on his stick, does give you a little bit more scoring. He's 6'6". He's in the final year of a deal at $2.1 million. I think, again, this could be like a guy to put on your bottom six. Not going to give you like a style like Marchment, who's a bit more physical and hard on the forecheck. I think Bukestad's a sort of different type of player, a little bit more skilled, but you sort of understand what you're going to get, a veteran that will know his role. And, he's had some successful years in tough situations like Arizona and now Utah lately, but did have a few nice seasons in Minnesota prior to going over to Arizona. And, would, I think, be a reliable guy to sort of plug into your bottom six. So Bukestad is a name out there. I don't know how available he's going to be. Look, some of these I'm just sort of throwing out there since, I tried to deep dive into some different teams that could be sellers and some different bodies that I think could be interesting. Now, one that could be a hot commodity is Joel Armia, a right winger. He's 31. Again, a bottom six guy, 6'4", 218. I think this is someone the Stars should really keep their eye on. If they can add somebody like Armia, we've seen him in a few games against the Habs this season. I think this is the type of player Stars would love to add. Like he's physical. He plays, just under 12 minutes a night. He would be a rental, a good veteran ad. Again, not going to provide you a bunch of punch offensively, but sort of gives you a Colasar, right, type, Amadio. Like those are the type of players I'm thinking, like a Vegas, that have some of those just big, brawly, depth guys in the bottom six that can get in on the forecheck and just wear guys out. So I think Armia may be a pretty hot commodity. He's been thrown out there in circles of a player that teams could be really, really intrigued about. So I wanted to get him in here as well, since he sort of fits that archetype that I'm thinking about that Dallas could really use, because, they have the Blackwells of the world. They have the Sam Steeles. They have an Oscar Beck. Can you get some size in your bottom six? Some guys that play with some edge that I think can give Dallas something different, which I think they need up front a little bit. You got your Stankovens, your Borks of the world. Can you provide some punch on the back end to eat up some minutes? And we all know DeBoer likes to roll four lines, man. He likes to roll four lines and try to wear teams out. So with that in mind, I think a player like Armia, Frederick are two candidates that could sort of fit that mold here in Dallas. So there you go. There's a bit of a trade deadline extravaganza. We're a month away from the NHL trade deadline. March 7th is the trade deadline. We're about a month away. Really curious to see if any teams do any movement here over the next few weeks. It is possible, but I think a lot of the action will start to pop off post Four Nations face-off, and teams are going to start realizing where they are a bit more with, about 15 to 20 something games to go in the season. A lot could happen, and I'm hoping the Stars make a splash in some way. I want them to really rejuvenate our fandom to some degree. Get us thinking, okay, like, I'm nervous about getting through a round, maybe two, to like, okay, this is like a Western Conference final, at least sort of roster. And to be frank and to be fair, when the Stars are fully healthy, they may be that caliber with how they've been playing recently, but doesn't mean they shouldn't try to go out, be a Vegas to some degree, be aggressive. They've done that already by going to get some players like Soucy and Granlund to sort of what I would call sort of bandages right now. Let's add some weapons. Let's add some new gear, upgrades, people, upgrades. Am I right? Let me know in the comments if you know what that's from. Anyways, that'll do it for a Wednesday edition of Locked On Stars. Be sure, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, never miss an episode. Drop some players in the comments below as well that you're keeping your eye on, maybe some players that I missed, and maybe I should get my eye on as well moving forward here in the next few weeks. It's going to be busy, and a lot of fun. I want to thank you, as always, for the love and support on all the videos. You guys have been fantastic. It's going to be a busy week. I'll be on the road for really the next 2 weeks. Got a lot of stuff going on. I'll be in Amarillo, and then I'll be in Detroit for a few days for the North American Hockey League Top Prospects Tournament, which will be a lot of fun. I'll be doing some stuff there with the boys, and then I'll be in Oklahoma for a bit before we come back home. So it'll be a busy few weeks, but I'm looking forward to it. So I'm going to get some episodes out, try to keep it fresh, try to keep it fun, and enjoy the Four Nations break as well. Have a great rest of your day, Stars fans, and we'll see you tomorrow. So long.